Hey everybody, Ryan here at etrailer. Today on our 2013 Ford C-Max, we're going to be showing you how to install the Roadmaster Crossbar-Style base plate kit. But before we do that, why don't we check it out and make sure that this is the right setup for you. So I figured before we get kind of too carried away and really start talking about the base plate and how it works and everything else like that, I figured it'd be useful to go over the main components that we're going to need to flat tow our C-Max down the road in the first place. So there's going to be a total of 5 main components needed to get your C-Max down the road behind your motorhome. First one's going to be the base plate, and the base plate's going to provide us with a solid and reliable connection point. That way we can hook our tow bar up to it. That tow bar is going to be the second component, and this is going to be the actual physical link that connects the front of our Ford to the back of our motorhome. The third main component is going to be safety cables, and these are pretty straightforward. They're there in the event of an unlikely disconnect. They're going to keep everything paired together. The fourth main component is going to be your tow bar wiring, and what this is going to do is transfer the lighting signals from the back of your coach to the back of your Ford, keeping you safe and legal. And last but not least, the fifth main component is going to be a braking system. And what this is going to do is apply the brakes in your C-Max whenever you hit the brakes in your RV, helping to bring you to a more predictable and complete stop. So this is what your setup's going to look like whenever you're all hooked up to the back of the motorhome. And it's pretty convenient. I know a lot of people compare or consider these type of setups versus like a tow dolly, for example, one that you drive up onto. And I've done tons of these. And I've also had quite a bit of experience with the tow dollies, and I'll tell you right now, every time, this is just going to be a little bit easier to set up and get you going, which is important. You don't want to waste a whole bunch of time when you're out on the road, and then not to mention, you got to store a trailer somewhere. But, when it comes down to it, you really can't go wrong with the setup like this. It's something you're going to be able to rely on. Get your car behind the motorhome and go have some fun. So this is what your C-Max is going to look like whenever you're just cruising around town and not flat towing behind the motorhome. And actually, I think it looks pretty good. Not half bad by any means. The base plate is relatively small and kind of off to the side there. And it doesn't stick out real far or anything like that. So it does a really good job, actually, at kind of blending in. One thing I do like is the fact that the base plate already has a bracket on it for your wiring connector there. So really convenient. It's one less thing you're going to have to worry about, kind of customizing or anything like that to get this mounted up. So super easy and makes life that much more simple. With this being a crossbar style base plate is going to come with these removable arms. And the way these work is they simply just slide in. And you rotate them like that. They'll stay in position. Now, in order to use this base plate and hook your tow bar up to it, you're going to have the crossbar. And the crossbar is going to run along here and actually bolt up to these mounts here and allow you to get the tow bar hooked up to it. So this is what the crossbar is going to look like once you secure it to those base plate arms. And actually, the crossbar style on the smaller cars like this, I kind of prefer, and I say that because it kind of brings our attachment point up quite a bit higher and just makes it easier to hook up. You don't have to bend down so far and everything else. It just gives you a little more clearance. So actually on the smaller cars like the C-Max, I am partial to these. But with that said, once you have this on there, it's going to give you a direct connection on each side. That way you can hook your tow bar up to it. Whenever you are ready to hook up your tow bar, the end of it is just going to line up with the connection point there at our base plate. Take your pen and slide it through. So this setup is going to work with most Roadmaster tow bars. With that said, if you happen to have another manufacturer, chances are pretty good you can make that one work too by using an adapter end. As far as actually getting the base plate installed, I'm not going to lie, it takes a little bit of work. You have to remove the front fascia and things like that, but Actually, kind of to my surprise, everything came apart quite easily. And once you have everything out of the way, you know, it's pretty straightforward, nothing too crazy or complicated that you have to do. So as long as you take your time, really shouldn't give you too many issues. Speaking of which, let's go ahead, pull into the garage and put it on together now. To begin our install, we're going to be here at the front of our C-Max and going to pop the hood. And what we're going to need to do is remove our front fascia. So the first steps in that is pulling out some fasteners located along the top edge here. There's going to be a total of 4 plastic ones like this, and what you can do is get a trim tool or even a flathead screwdriver. It'll work underneath the head of the fastener and then underneath the base, and that will get it completely pulled out. So we have 3 more left, and we'll simply just do that same thing to get these out. Now we're going to pull our grill part off separately here, so you can simply just kind of pull back on it. And there's going to be a handful of these plastic tabs that run across this bottom edge. So what you can do, work from one side to the other, kind of just put light pressure on it, and take a screwdriver and push down on this tab here. And while you're pushing down, you can kind of pull it out. These are a little tricky, you know, to get it worked out of there, but it will come. So once you get it to pop out like that, it should get a little bit easier when you start to actually get to work your way down. But just going to carefully get all these removed. So I actually found a little trick here. If you actually come in from this side, underneath those tabs, and kind of pry up on it, it actually makes it a little bit easier. Pull the grill off, you know, that's the tabs that you can push up on, but once we have it released, we'll just set it to the side. There's going to be a handful of clips along through here that was behind the grill, and what you can do with these is ours is actually really loose. But if these were tight, you'd get a screwdriver in there and kind of pry up on them, you know, just kind of how we did to get the grill out. We want to kind of pull these back and make sure they're all released. Now if you come to our wheel wells, we have some fasteners we need to remove. It does help if you turn your tires in one way or the other. It makes it easier to get to. One of them will be down here. It's a T30 Torx bit fastener. So we'll pull that out. We're going to have the same one up here a little ways. We'll get that out as well. And then if we look right there, there's a plastic fastener. And we'll pull that out too. The same way we did the ones earlier, just get underneath the head of it and work it out. It is a little bit trickier though, because we have this wheel well liner right in our way. So we kind of have to work around that a little bit. And I want to mention, from this point on, anything we do to one side of the vehicle, we're also going to do it to the other side, because it'll be set up the same way. Now underneath the front of our vehicle, there will be 3 fasteners on each side that you need to pull out. Now in our case, this vehicle is missing a couple of them, but you'd usually have one right here, the corner. We do have this one in place still, and it looks like this one's actually damaged as well on its way out. So, but you'll usually have one there, and then one there at this point as well. Now with the next set of hands, we can actually remove our fascia. So I did put some painter's tape here along where we're going to be working, that way we don't accidentally scratch it up. But you're going to start here at the corner and kind of just start to work around here. And then once you get kind of here underneath the headlight, there's going to be a clip that you can kind of pry up on with the screwdriver. Get that portion of it released. We're just going to work our way around, and once we have it free, you want to pay attention here. If we happen to have any wiring connectors or anything like that, you want to disconnect them. So we have a fog light and this connector here. Fog light, you're just going to push down on the tab to pull out. And this one looks like we can just separate. But once we're all free, set our fascia off to the side somewhere safe. Just to give you a better shot of that connector that was on our fog light, this is a tab there that you're going to push down on, and so when you're holding it down, that's when you're able to pull that connector out from the fog light itself. So if you look underneath this shock absorption pad, this plastic piece, you can see we're going to have some wiring that's attached to it. You just need to separate that wiring from it, so you just take your trim tool or your flathead, just work your way down and pry all those little plastic fasteners out of there. Now what we need to do is refer to our instructions. There's a diagram in them, and we need to cut off a portion of this shock pad, this plastic piece. So I went ahead and drew that out, and I'm just going to use a Dremel tool to get it trimmed out. Once we have these sides cut, we can simply work it off the front of our vehicle and set it to the side. Over here on the driver's side, we need to cut off this support tab here. I'm going to use a pair of snips to do this because there's a lot of lines and stuff kind of going on right here. I don't want to slip with the Dremel tool and break anything on accident. But what we're going to do, once you have that removed, if you kind of pull back on this, there's going to be an 8mm head bolt in there, right through there. And we're going to go ahead and get that removed. And let this come down and get it out of the way. On the passenger side, we just need to temporarily remove our horns. So if you look, kind of pull them back, and if you look up, there's going to be a 10mm fastener. And pull that out. Then we can kind of just let the horns, sit off to the side for now. Now what we need to do, if you look at our subframe here, we're going to have two pre-existing holes, and we need to enlarge them. So I grabbed a bit, and we'll just carefully open those up to the size indicated in the instructions. With those holes drilled out, what I'm going to do now is take two of the pipe spacers here. All right, and I put them on some packing tape, and we're going to give this a try. These are kind of a pain to get lined up and stuff, just on your own there. So what I'm going to do is actually just tape them in line with their holes there. And that should kind of hold them in place and make it a lot easier to line up part of our base plate with. That way we're not trying to kind of hold everything, perfect and hope that it lines up. So we'll give this a shot and see how it does. But I got a feeling it's going to work pretty good. Go ahead and make sure that's secure on there. Then of course, obviously, since bolts are going to have to pass through here, you want to take a pick or something and just make sure you open up the center of that spacer. Now what we can do is we're going to grab one of these handle nuts here, and I'm going to take it and just put it inside here. So we're just going to let this one kind of sit tight here, and then you're going to grab one of these nutted plates that doesn't have the handle and slide this in. Just kind of let that hang for now and get our hardware ready. What we're going to do is take one of these bolts here, put on a split lock washer, a flat washer, and then take some red Loctite. And all of the hardware that we're going to use to secure the base plate is going to receive this red Loctite. And you can pick that up here at etrailer. And that same hardware combo, again, put our Loctite on there. And then what we can do is grab our side plates here. Now these are side specific. Make sure to check your instructions, but one quick way you can tell is these angles here should be pointing towards the outside of our vehicle. So what we're going to do is take our bolt, put that through, and we'll start on the bottom. So take that and then line up our plate there. And we're just going to get a few turns on this, get it started. And same thing for this one. In my case, I got pretty lucky. It looks like that handle nut is pretty close. But you might have to kind of adjust a little bit to get everything to line up. This can be tricky sometimes, so just, you know, take your time with it and we'll eventually get it lined up where it needs to be. And once we have that hardware in there hand tight, we'll just come back with a 19mm and snug them down some. Now we can grab our main receiver brace and we're just gonna kind of get this up into position here. And what we're gonna do, just to kind of hold it in place, I'm just gonna take one of these bolts and a nut and just on each side of it in one of these openings, I'll put that nut on just so it can kind of loosely hold everything up in place. We're going to grab another handle nut and we're going to slide it through here. And what we're trying to do is to get it to line up with the hole in the bumper beam and the hole in our base plate. We're going to take one of these bolts and a split lock washer. Don't forget your Loctite and get this started as well. So with the bolts done in our bumper beam, we can come back to here. We're going to take our bolt and Loctite, slide it on through. This time we're going to put on a split lock washer and a hex nut. So what I'm going to do is just get this one hand tight. Then we can pull that nut off. Add our Loctite. Put on that split lock washer. Then just put that nut right back on. With all of our hardware in place and hand tight, come back with a 19mm socket and wrench and snug everything down. And finally, we need to make sure and come back with a torque wrench and tighten down all of the hardware to the amount specified in the instructions. If you don't have a torque wrench, you can always grab one here at etrailer, or a lot of times if you go to your local auto parts stores, they'll have one there available to rent. Now I went ahead and just reattached our horns. It is a little tight and a little tricky to see, but the way I got them up there is just used an extension and a wobble head 10mm socket, and I use those in 1/4 inch drive sizes, so it's nice and thin and able, you know, allows you to get up in there. With that done though, we're just going to take the handles here from our handle nuts and the parts that are kind of just hanging off. We're just going to go ahead and clip them out of the way. At this point, it'd be a great time to install any of your other flat towing components like wiring and a braking system, for example. And I say that because with the fascia off, we have all this extra space to work and it makes it a lot easier. So That's exactly what I'm gonna do. If you already have those done or you're not gonna be installing them, what you can do is simply just refer to your instructions. There's a diagram in there. You are gonna have to trim out a small piece of your fascia. And once you have that trimmed out, you can simply just reinstall everything the opposite way that you removed it. Now what we can do, once all of our components are installed and everything else, we can get our fascia on. So there's going to be a couple things that we need to take care of before we do that. One of them, if we look on the back side, we're going to have the shroud here, and we need to remove that. So like to start on the corner, there's these tabs. You can kind of push in on them and lift up at the same time. That'll free it. And so we're just going to work our way kind of all the way down here. It'll pop up and we can get it removed. So now we can flip our fascia over, and there's a diagram, the instructions, and I just drew that out. We need to cut this area out on each side. I'm just going to use a little saw here to do that, but you can also use a Dremel tool or kind of whatever you got laying around. But that said, I'm gonna go ahead and get this material removed. Once you have that cut out though, if you have any rough edges or anything like that, you can always come back with a straight edge or a piece of sandpaper or file and clean those up. So I went ahead and just kind of held our fascia in place, you know, and just to check our cuts here, and the side cuts that we made turned out pretty good actually. We did have to cut out a little bit here in the center just to clear all of our stuff. This is how mine turned out. You know, everyone's going to be a little bit different just depending on how you mounted all them components, but it's a good way to do it. Just hold it on there. It gives you an idea where to cut. But now that we know everything will clear and is how we want it, we can simply reinstall our fascia the opposite way that we removed it. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster base plate kit here on our 2013 Ford C-Max.